Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Max and Nikki 1000th Time Reactions.
On today's episode, we're going to be reacting to The Girl from Ipanema by Stan Getz and João Gilberto off of the album Getz Gilberto. Mm-hmm. This song obviously featuring the vocals of Astrid Gilberto.
Written by Antonio Carlos Jobim,
Yes,
of course.
the whole album features the music of Antonio Carlos Jobim. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we've heard this song countless times, over way more than 1,000 times.
In fact, I think this is, aside from video game music, I think this bossa nova, which this is in the style of, was the first type of music that I admitted to liking.
Anyway, but we'll get more into that after we react to the song. But before we do, just want to let you guys all know that we have another channel called Max and Nikki, on which we perform oldies tunes, jazz standards, like the one you're about to hear, and songs in that vein, originals in that vein, rather.
And we got some comedy videos on there as well.
Mm-hmm. So check that out.
But for right now, let's get to listening to
The Girl from Ipanema
Ipanema
by Getz and Gilberto.
All right, here we go.
For our 1000th time.
Olha que coisa mais linda, mais cheia de graça. Ela, menina que vem, que passa, num doce balanço, caminho do mar. Moça do corpo dourado do sol de Ipanema, o seu balançado é mais que um poema, é a coisa mais linda que eu já vi passar. Ah, porque estou tão sozinho. Ah, porque tudo é tão triste. A beleza que existe, a beleza que não é só minha, que também passa sozinha. Ah, se ela soubesse que quando ela passa, o mundo sorrindo se enche de graça e fica mais lindo por causa do amor.
And tan and young and lovely, the girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, each one she passes goes ah. When she walks, she's like a samba that swings so cool and sways so gently, that when she passes, each one she passes goes ah. Watch her so sadly. How can he tell her he loves her? Yes, he would give his heart gladly. But each day when she walks to the sea, she looks straight ahead, not at him. The girl from Ipanema goes walking, and when she passes, he smiles, but she doesn't see.
Ah, yes. The girl from Ipanema here on Max and Nikki 1000th Time Reactions.
Stan Getz, João Gilberto, and Astrid Gilberto,
and Antonio Carlos
Jobim.
You know, this is obviously a great song, or else we wouldn't be reacting to it. But Stan Getz is actually my favorite saxophone player of all time.
He's got that kind of
wispy
kind of
smooth
tone.
tone.
It's like
Silky.
Although silky, to
Not
me, the
quite
connotation doesn't quite. I mean, silky. Yes, it
Velvety
has this feel,
almost.
velvety.
Velvety.
Thank you. That's good, Nikki.
You know, John Coltrane once said about Stan Getz, we'd all play like him if we could. That's how good he was.
He was really quite good.
People like John Coltrane
His solos
wish he
were
could play
quite
like him.
melodic sounding. Of course, he was basing it off the melody. His solo on this.
But his solos were they were like melodies
You can
in of
whistle them
themselves.
too,
You know,
yeah.
In fact, you know, I started off on the saxophone as a musician. I started off on the alto saxophone. Now, this was a tenor sax that Stan Getz played, but
The difference is a tenor sax, a little bit of a lower register.
When I started learning how to solo,
don't know.
part of my lessons where I had to transcribe solos, my saxophone teacher had me transcribe solos of jazz musicians, and I transcribed the solo for Stan Getz's solo on the song Desafinado that he did with Charlie Bird. And check that out. It's a really good solo.
Really good solo, really great song. Another Antonio Carlos Jobim. I think Jobim may be one of...
He probably is one of the
top 5 composers of the 20th century, for sure.
But also, he's one of the top 5 just songwriters.
Well, I mean, when
No.
What's the difference?
That have had an influence on my own music.
Oh, sure. Maybe actually...
I would say he might
top
even
3,
be
maybe the most important.
He might be the
actually.
most important influence on my own music.
Yeah, I would
because
say him and maybe
him and the Beatles.
Maybe
I would say.
and maybe Gershwin. I would say too.
But you know, as Max alluded to earlier, bossa nova music, which this song is in the style of, it's the first kind of music I admitted to liking as a kid.
Now,
in addition to video game music.
Now, I admitted to liking it. I secretly
I loved all the oldies tunes, all the
tunes
Beatles
that my mom would
songs
be listening to on the radio. But for some reason, we had it in our heads that we could only admit to liking this at the time. And video game music.
And in fact, you might have seen me lip syncing.
Maybe we should react to some video game tunes.
Sure, yeah, that would be now you're using your noggin.
Now I'm using my noggin, Nikki. But I think
you know, I will say this though. Well, you know, you might have seen me lip syncing to the Portuguese part of this song, and that's only because I went out of my way when I was in high school to
wait. How many of these stories
phonetically learn?
I transcribed this. I
went out of my way to phonetically learn the Portuguese lyrics,
Portuguese,
to the Portuguese lyrics to this song, because I thought it would be cool and impressive, and also maybe I would be able to romance a girl with singing this in Portuguese one day. And hopefully hopefully I can still do that soon. You know?
Hopefully someday that'll happen. But João Gilberto, by the way, was the male singer on this. Astrid
And guitarist.
Who is credited he's credited with really kind of inventing the bossa nova style. Although
Him and Antonio Carlos
Jobim really kind of expanded on it and was the more prolific writer. He had the more classic songs that everyone knows today. This included "The Girl from Ipanema,"
This being the most popular.
This is probably the most popular. And by
in
the
fact,
way,
the album that this is on is called Getz Gilberto, which came out in 1963. It won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year in 1964.
It
was the first jazz album.
Boy, you don't have to
Well,
get in
hold on,
my
I'm not
way
done.
here.
It was the first jazz album to win Album of the Year at the Grammys, and it was the last jazz album to win until 2008 when Herbie Hancock won for Letters from Joni or Letters to Joni.
Right, that's right. He was covering Joni Mitchell tunes. But here's another thing about this is that's how eclectic kind of the 60s was with pop tunes, actually, that made it big. Not only were there rock songs and you know pop tunes from the Beatles that were hitting the charts, but jazz standards and stuff like that, like this and Frank Sinatra were hitting the charts. It was a really eclectic time for music, I think, because the 60s kind of encompassed just a change in music that was happening, and change in culture and social norms and stuff like that. But it's an interesting time, I gotta say. And it was kind of cool that you'd be listening. I wouldn't know, because I didn't grow up in the 60s, but you'd be listening to the radio and you can have the Beatles, and then the next thing on the radio would be this. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, it's classic. The 60s were the best, weren't they? I mean,
for some things.
As far as
For some things.
music and fashion and
Well, not all fashion. I would say more the early
as far
60s
as
for fashion.
music and fashion goes, men's fashion,
Men's
at
fashion.
least. And some women's fashion too.
Some
actually.
women's fashion,
I mean,
some.
take a look at Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's. She's dressed to the nines in that movie.
But I will say also, Antonio Carlos Jobim is playing the piano on this, and I like his very sparse.
Do not underrate Antonio
It's
Carlos
very
Jobim
simple
in
but
this
very
song.
effective.
His fills are very nicely done. No, but I'm not even talking about this.
It's so simple and effective. I think.
know, but I'm not even talking about his solo. I'm talking about his fills when he first enters. Oh, they're just these single notes.
I mean,
They're very good,
it is
very good.
It's a
But
good-
also, obviously, Stan Getz's fills are very good in this.
Sure.
It's all around
And
a
by
great.
the way, the single that was released, this is from this. The one we're listening to right now is the album version of this song. The single that was released was, in fact, did not have João Gilberto singing on it. It was they edited that out, and it was just Astrud Gilberto just doing the English,
Who was singing the English
lyrics of it. Astrud Gilberto was João Gilberto's wife at the time. just
But
so you know.
actually, famously or infamously, Astrud Gilberto and Stan Getz had an affair.
That's right. I
And-
think actually, maybe during the recording of this, or maybe a little after, or something like that. But I think Stan Getz and João Gilberto, they eventually patched things up and recorded more albums together later on.
Anyway, this is a great song
great
off a
tune.
great classic album. And I think that'll do it for today's reaction.
Well, not today's, one of today's reactions.
Right. If you enjoyed what you heard and saw today, please hit that subscribe button and ding that post notification bell to find out about more Max and Nikki reaction videos.
Please keep tuning in.